we were recognized by Dr. Shock. He used to DJ for the Force MCs as well after Dr. Rock, Dr. Shock, Michael Thomas. And Dr. Shock introduced us to Arthur Armstrong, who later on became our manager. So when we signed the management contract, he got us signed to a label called Public Records, which was an independent label. And we had to come with the name of a group. So at that time, you know, Boom Bash was so heavy in the streets. Everybody knew who Boom Bash was. And it wasn't a bad thing to know who Boom Bash was. You just knew that Boom Bash, if you had a problem, they had your back. You know what I mean? And it was like the Hollis Crew, for instance. Run DMC had the Hollis Crew. Mikey D had Boom Bash. And that was the name that we wanted to use. You know what I mean? We wanted to be Boom Bash. That was going to be our title. They you know, they didn't want to do it because they didn't feel comfortable with, you know, that, you know, because of street things and stuff like that. So they were a little nervous. They wanted, you know, us to be this clean cut professional group or whatever. So the next best thing for us to do, we said, how about LA Posse? Because Laurelton, anybody from Queens, especially Jamaica Queens, know if you're from Laurelton, that's LA. They say LA. You know what I mean? And Posse at the time was your crew. The people you hung with was your posse. So we were like, well, how about LA Posse? It was still Boom Bash, you know what I mean? But it was just a different name.
Right.
And they, you know, the label wanted the Mikey D at the front of it. That's how it became Mikey D and the LA Posse. But the original LA Posse is myself, DJ Johnny Quest, and Paul C. And the crew was Boom Bash.
You mentioned Public Records. At what point did Elite come? Was that before or after Public Records with your I Get Rough?
I Get Rough originally came out on Public. We did 2 singles with Public Records before we got signed to Sleeping Bag. We did My Telephone. That on the B side was Bust Around Mike and Dawn. And Dawn was the godfather of noise, human beatbox. Rozelle, that was his introduction as a human beatbox, you know. And then we backed that up with I Get Rough in 1987, which was backed with Go For It. But then Public Records went under, and Arthur Armstrong, he's the one that started up Elite Records. So he re-released that record because he had all of the rights to it. He re-released that record on Elite Records. So that's how that became.
Gotcha. What kind of buzz did those singles generate? I Get Rough and the rest of those. What kind of buzz was Mikey D hearing in the streets from those?
We was banging on them, man. We was definitely banging on them, especially those late night shows like Hank Love and them, and you know, the late night joints. Mr. Magic was even banging our stuff. Red Alert was banging our stuff. So we had the underground hits. We didn't really have commercial hits. We had the underground hits. And it was like the first one, My Telephone, that was back with Bust Around Mike took off. That one took off. Actually, Bust Around Mike gave birth to Mikey Destruction, because I said all MCs are headed for corruption. From now on, call me Mikey Destruction at the end of that. So that birthed Mikey Destruction. And then the follow-up single was I Get Rough. Now, that one took off for the simple fact that it was controversial, because that's the song that I dissed LL. I'm bad. You know, I did forget the cookies, eat Mikey D cereal. You know? So that one did pretty well as well, man. So, excuse me. Yeah, so that's how that went down, man.
So at this time, is there a bidding war, and how did you guys land with the one of the biggest independent labels at Sleeping Bag?
Sleeping Bag Records deal is a real funny story. My man, Mantronics, he was looking for, you know, a rapper at the time. I don't know what was going on with him and Tricky T at the time. But, you know, he was ready to release more music, and, you know, Somehow my name got to him, and he heard some of the cassettes and me in the street, the park jams, this, that, and the other. And we went down there for a meeting. You know, we met with Mantronics, and he was like, "Yo, I want you to be down." Boom, 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 boom. I didn't think it would be although he was successful at the time, it was a great opportunity. My loyalty wouldn't allow it. So I'm like, man, we already got Paul C. You know, so we might as well do something, you know, something fresh, you know. And Johnny Quest, I can't leave them to join somebody else. And Virgil Sims was the A&R at the time, and he took a listen to our music and was like, yo, this is kind of dope. So they signed us for a single deal. We did Out of Control and Coming in the House, which banged. Now at that same year was 1988. Mantronics heard me because I was battling in the parks and I was a terrorist lyrically, battling everybody. At that time, they used to have this big battle called New Music Seminar, Battle for World Supremacy. You know what I mean? So Will Sopolox and Ron Resnick and all of them from Fresh and Sleeping Bag Records was like, okay, this guy's some type of battle rapper. Let's test his skills. You know what? They entered me in the New Music Seminar, 1988. And brother, I did not rehearse. I was excited about it. And what's so crazy about it, 1987, I made the song I Get Rough, right? 1987, the year before. And the last verse I said, I don't wear a lot of gold and I don't drive a car. My muscles ain't large, but my pockets are. People see me on the street and treat me just like a star. I don't even have to practice for the seminar. Said that at the end of my verse the year before. They put me into the seminar, and guess what? I won the New Music Seminar 1988, man. And Sleeping Bag Records knew they had something on their hands at the time.
We'll come back to the sleeping bag situation. Take us back to the New Music Seminar. For those of us who don't know what particularly goes on, can you detail how you ended up battling Melly Mel? Was that the last? Did you have to go through a slew of rappers to get to that point? So can you
Yes,
detail who you had to go through to get to that point?
well, first you go through a preliminary challenge. The seminar is a 3-day event, 2 days for the rap competition. So the first day of the rap competition, you have to go through the preliminary rounds. Those who lost the preliminary rounds were automatically out. So my first round, I had to go against my man, another Queens brother, Mr. X. They had the record, you know, I drink old gold, you know, and that was one of my favorite joints because that's what I drank, you know. But yeah, so me and him did what we had to do. I wound up winning that, and then the following day is when I had to go against, you know, the rest of the guys, man. So, you know, we partied all night at the preliminary and everything. We had maybe 20 brothers with us at the preliminary and partying all night and going to all of the events and performing, and 20 people, man. And then the next day, it was crickets when it was time to go back. Me and Johnny Quest was the only two. We had to leave 10 o'clock in the morning to get to the Marriott Marquise in Manhattan, man. You know, we partied out, a little hungover and everything, but the adrenaline, man, that kept us up. So we got there, and man, listen, Search was in that competition. My man, I had to battle King's son, my boy. I had to battle a brother named Bango from I think he was from Cleveland. Ill. Um, man, there was a slew of other rappers that I had to go through, because what it is in the seminar you got 2 rounds apiece, you know, and you know they had judges. Jazzy Joyce and them was there, and it was incredible, man. But you had 2 rounds each battle, and I must have battled about 10 different rappers, you know, and then until everybody is eliminated, and then it's down to the final two. So the final two was me and that brother Bango. You know, he was dope, and you know, I edged him. You know, I had the edge, so I won. Now, with Melly Mel, that was supposed to be a demonstration. This year's champion rapping with last year's champion, a celebration. Everybody got their belts, this, that, and the third. But the thing is, I don't think Melly Mel wanted to accept that. I think they wanted to keep the belt in their circle because Busy B won. Busy B won one year, then Grandmaster Caz won, and then Melly Mel won. And I guess Melly Mel wanted to win again so he could keep the belt in their crew. So he turned it into a battle. He was like, F, just rapping with this chump. He ain't no champion, a real champion, a battle for his belt. Winner takes all. And I'm like, hell no, I'm not doing that. But first of all, this is Melly Mel. No. Not that I was scared of him physically or lyrically. It's because I had that much respect for the legend. Like, nah, I'm not going to do this. You know what I mean? Then Grandmaster Caz, my idol, was with this brother. You know what I mean? And, they walking on stage like they WWF principals against little old me. Now, see, this is the thing. I had three things going against me. One, I was from Queens. So you had that Bronx Queens thing going on there. Two, I was a pretty boy. I was a little pretty boy talking the most trash. And three, I was the champion this year. You know what I mean? They didn't want that. Nah, man, this ain't gonna happen. Because now this is gonna check. No, it wasn't that I was number three, wasn't that I was the champion. Number three was I was new school. That's what it was. Legends against this new jack. You know what I mean? Okay. Melly Mel pranced around that stage, hyping it up, hyping everybody up. And the crowd was like, yo, go for it, Mike, go for it. I'm like, nah. Yo, he threw his belt on the ground. Like, I'm still saying, nah, I'm not going to do this in the crowd. Once the crowd starts chanting your name and they're talking about, go, Mikey, that gave me that energy to say, F, the respect, all of that's out the window. This is a battle. F it. I threw my belt on top of his and was like, let's do it. Now, Grandmaster Caz and their crew, they don't think I won the battle because I attacked him personally. They I guess they wanted to compare rhymes against rhymes. But you don't do that when you're in a shootout. You don't ask the person, let me see which gun you got so I can go back and get a gun to match your gun. When you're at war, you go for the kill. And that's what I did. It was a respectful kill, but you put my back against the wall. I had no other choice but to come out fighting. You tried to humiliate me in my time of victory. And I can't allow that from anyone. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, although I'm a new jack, I'm still a man. So, yeah, I had to unleash the destruction. And my man Melly Mel was a cock diesel brother, and he was doing push-ups and all of that on stage. So, okay, do the push-ups. I started dissing him at the rhythm of his push-ups, So that got the crowd. That was my thing, to get the crowd on my side and humiliate him. And that's what I did. The crowd decided that I was the winner, but Grandmaster Caz had already picked up both of the belts and began walking off stage as I was doing my thing. So I guess he must have assumed that Melly Mel was going to destroy me, which didn't happen. I had a surprise. Then, when it was time to give the belts up, Melly Mel grabbed both of the belts and he stormed out of the place. And like I said, I'm glad that my crew could not wake up that next morning and come with us, because that would not have happened if Boom Bash would have been in the building. And I'm so happy that they did not come that particular day. It was only me and Quest, you know what I mean? And I didn't think anybody, like even people in the audience wanted to move on him. Daddy-O from Stetson Sonic, him and the Brooklyn's, the goons, was ready to move. And I pleaded with like Daddy-O, I'm like, nah, we don't have to do that. because it won't look good on my future if anything happens to that man. You see what I'm saying? So what happened is Tom Silverman, the person that organizes the new music seminar, wound up making me a brand new belt. So at the end of the day, I still got my belt and I still got my respect for Melly Mel. It is what it is.
Years later, did he ended up returning the original belt, or in what the conversation? Do you guys just avoid all that altogether?
I avoid it at all costs, you know, because I don't want to be one of those older rappers. Or I won't say older. I don't want to be one of those mature rappers to always talk about what I did. Nah, it's under the water, man. Let's talk about what I'm doing. You feel me?
Right.
So with Melly Mel, I don't have no bad feelings against that brother. I love Melly Mel. I love everything that he did for the culture. You know, that was just, you know, a scene that will always go down in the history of hip hop. And I'm a part of that. So at the end of the day, it is what it is, man. It's all love on this side.
Absolutely. Take it back to Sleeping Bag Records. What did this mean for your career and the deal at Sleeping Bag at this point?
Sleeping Bag was a great opportunity to become a lot bigger. As I said before, I already exceeded my expectations of what I wanted out of this hip hop thing. You know, not only was I the dopest MC in my hood, I'm becoming one of the dopest MCs in the industry because that belt, that validated everything. Like, yo, this is the battle for world supremacy. Like, woo. And I got the belt. And I'm hanging the belt up in Poppin' Kim's. And I'm on Sleeping Bag Records, one of the number one. Well, it was actually, I would say, the second best independent label outside of Def Jam. Because Def Jam was popping. But see, then Def Jam, they got under the umbrella of Columbia. So that took them to a whole nother level, to whereas Sleeping Bag was still independent. But it definitely catapulted us into another stratosphere, man. It was a great decision, man. It was a great move.
So did a whole album ever materialize on Sleeping Bag? What eventually happened with the deal over
Man,
there?
tragedy. See, this is why I need to write a book, man. Tragedy happened. 1989. We're about to complete the album. Everything is done. Everything is approved. You know what I mean? Fire album. Whole album produced by Paul C. Come on. See, a lot of people know Paul C for his production and his engineering capability because he produced a couple of joints for other people. But see, the difference between us and them, Paul C was a part of our family and he was a part of our group. So we spent nights together and we were family for real. You know what I mean? And the album was done. Everything was ready to rock and roll. And Paul C was taken from us tragically in his sleep. Dude never had a bad bone in his body, never had a problem with nobody. You know what I'm saying? Like, he would be the last person that you would expect to die such a horrific death. You feel me? That took the energy out of everything, man. I lost respect for a lot of people. I lost respect for hip hop, and things started going downhill. Prior to that, prior to Paul C, see, this is the the line of events that took place. So we're the LA Posse, right? We're with Sleeping Bag Records, you know, one of the top independent labels, LA Posse. Now, mind you, Bigger and Deffer comes out. You know, LL and me, you know, people still say we're feuding, you know, whatever. So he comes out with this Bigger Deffer album, and when you look at the credits, it was produced by the LA Posse. Now we like, huh? But it's not us. It's the other LA Posse. Daryl and Dwayne from California. We never heard of these dudes ever. Come on, we was rocking with that name since we got with Armstrong, before Public Records. Well, when we got with Public Records, you know, we're talking 85, 86. Come on. Now, they want to sue us. They rocking with Def Jam. You know what I mean? want to sue us for the name. Sleeping Bag Records didn't want to support our case. I know why, because Sleeping Bag Records didn't have money like Columbia had. So they couldn't hire them lawyers. And they were scared to lose the case. You know, but look, my integrity over everything, man. Like, I'm not giving my name to nobody. Court can't come and take it. Police can't come and take it. We built this. You know what I mean? So, you know, that left a sour taste in my mouth with Sleeping Bag, and then Paul C died around that same time. It just messed my whole vibe up with this record making business and all of that. So I wanted out. I wanted out of Sleeping Bag. I didn't want nothing to do with them, you know. And then that was that. You know, Paul C that was the nail in the coffin. And then, you know, the 90s were coming, you know, the NWAs and the gangster stuff. And I'm not one, I can't rap about what I'm not about. You feel me?
Right.
So I couldn't really get with that wave, man. And that was that, man. I just left it alone for a couple of years. And, you know, I went down to Miami, you know, to clear my head, effed around and got a record deal out there with my boy Terry. You know, we made a record out there, Put Your Body in Motion, called and we were No Strings Attached. I tried to change my identity and everything. We were in Miami. You know, Miami, they can't stand that boom bap. You know what I mean? So I went out there, tried to get on a little bass music, changed my name to Cordless Mike. And my man, Terry, that's my boy. He was down with Sensational Fire. He was Loverboy TC. He changed his name to CeeLo. You know what I'm saying? So we went down there under a new identity and everything. I had it popping too. But anyway, after that, man, I came on back to New York, man, and you know what happened next.
Let's get into it. So what kind of gap was that before you reached out and you went to an audition for Main Source, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, so they contacted you, I believe, and you had to audition. Can you take us back to coming back from Miami to New York and that time frame to where you got back in and linked up with Main Source?
So from Miami back to New York, you know, I chilled out. I got back to New York in '91. Actually, I got ran out of Miami, not by the gangsters, but the gangster weather. Hurricane Andrew chased us the F right up out of there. And Mikey D ain't been back since. Yo, so when I got back, I was hanging out with my boy Michael Beasley, man. Mike Beasley, he was gangster in the streets of Springfield Gardens, Queens, man. He drove the fly white Lincoln with the blue rag top, you know what I mean? Him and my man Nugget. So, you know, I was the little rapper. You know, I used to always be the little dude rhyming with around these guys. Instead of them playing the radio, they play a beat and I'm rapping. You know, they got their personal stereo with them, you know what I mean? And so Mike Beasley, he has family, and they had an office up in Manhattan called Hush Productions. Actually, Mike's cousin Bo was married to Melba Moore, and you know, Michael Michelle. She used to be at the studio, and a lot of celebrities used to be at the studio. I used to see Positive K up there and stuff like that, and they had this grand piano downstairs, and one day we were down there and somebody was tapping on the piano and I was just rocking. I was rhyming like I was in my zone. And Jeff Redd, the R&B singer, Jeff Redd, happened to hear me getting busy and he was like, yo. And he told me that he knew of a group that needed a lead rapper. He's not going to tell me who they are. You know, I'm not going to let you know who they are. I'm just going to give you this number, this address. Make sure you go check them out tomorrow. He told my man Mike Beasley, yo, make sure you take him there. Next day we go to Flushing, Queens. We go to the address was to this lady called Tandy Weems. Tandy Weems answers the door and Scratch, you know, he comes to the door. I knew he looked familiar. He looked very familiar. I couldn't quite place it at the time. So him and Tandy, you know, they invited us in. You know, they asked me to bust a rhyme or whatever. So I spit some bars or whatever. Boom, boom, boom. And he got on the phone and he called his brother. He said, I'm gonna call my brother. I'm gonna see, what my brother says. And it was K Cut. And I was like, all right, because the name started making sense. Sir Scratch, K Cut. All right, these main source dudes. All right. Oh, boom. Now I'm really getting busy. Boom. I didn't know what happened between Large Professor and them or anything like that. I just was excited that because these dudes is popping. I'm like, oh, yo, this is another opportunity. So that's how that happened. K Cut and Sir Scratch, they liked it, and I liked their vibe, this, that, and the other. Next thing you know, they shipped me and Mike Beasley out to Canada, to Toronto, to begin production on a new Main Source album. That was pretty dope. So, yeah, that was the introduction to Main Source.
Can you take us back to what those sessions were like to making that Wild Pitch album?
Well, there were actually two albums. The first album we recorded, well, actually, it was a half an album we recorded in Toronto. It didn't have that Mikey D energy in it. I didn't have my growl because K Cut was K Cut was the younger brother. He was definitely a party animal, and me and him were closer to the same age. Well, not the same age. I think I'm older than both of them, but we were closer to each other. Sir Scratch was more of the businessman, strictly business, man. Everything was business about him, and he's the exact same person as his mother, Miss McKenzie, Sandra McKenzie, which was their manager and mother. Very professional woman, and she wants things done the right way. And so Scratch was the same. So when I was down there writing and stuff like that, listening to these beats, man, I'd be sitting at the dining room table writing rhymes, and Scratch would be over, standing over me there, yo, you writing? You writing? Like, yo, damn, man, I can't move. Because me, I have to write what I'm feeling. I got to be in the surroundings. It got to be a certain type of vibe for me to catch that wave of writing. And it was too laid back. They wouldn't allow me